I really want to get your opinion on this because as somebody whose business is so closely linked to social media, I think it'll be really interesting. There's you guys might have heard about DeSantis. He vetoed this bill that was gonna ban social media usage for anyone under 16.
Wow.
Really?
So they were proposing that it not be allowed.
For Florida, or that's one of his running points?
For Florida.
Okay.
How would they even enforce that?
Well, I think what they were gonna do was they were gonna have this you had to have like a third-party age authentication thing. So it wasn't that it was completely banning it. It was just gonna make it like more of a hassle.
But is it as stupid as like you go on a porn site and then there's like
18, yes or no?
Are you 18?
Yeah.
it's like yes or no, yes or no.
It could have been, who knows? But they didn't get that far. So
I always say no.
DeSantis didn't agree with it. He ended up like vetoing it, so now it's just off the table. But what do you guys think about social media being disallowed
I like that actually.
from anybody?
I like that actually.
For kids?
Yeah, I like
Man, that's a good question because under 18, they ain't got no rights.
that. Yeah.
I mean, this is
So we have so Taika has his own iPad. On his iPad, we select what he watched. Taika's my kid. He's like 6 years old. We select what he watches, and he does have YouTube, but even YouTube has parental settings.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of fucking freaks on there that somehow know how to do like sidewind shit.
They get into the kids category.
So I'll be
somehow.
like, oh, cool, look at Spider-Man, like saving a princess. And they know how to embed this part in the video where the fucking princess gets raped later and shit. So you're like, they just want to, they want, I don't know, there's a lot of like fucking, what are these called, like virtual molesters or something? I don't know what they're called.
Whoa.
So we'll have to like watch what he's watching.
crazy.
Yeah.
We'll have to watch
Crazy
his
editing
watching.
skills.
You have to.
It starts off as like a cartoon. They're in the park.
looks normal.
And then like
Every minute,
5
that's-
minutes into it, they're like stabbing like somebody, and it's like.
And then a demon head pops out, and then a fucking like pumpkin cracks open, and then fucking there's like a dead baby, like some just crazy shit.
What?
It'll be crazy. I don't know.
This, man?
The
But
world-
they even
something
find a
Ryan
way
would
to
do.
get into the kids section.
Yeah.
So the world is dark, and then there's a ton of stats showing, like, especially in middle school, you know, where people like social circle, like your reputation matters a lot, and like suicide rates have gone up like crazy.
Right.
So to me, I would like to preserve his like his. I think in this day and age too, even we're dealing with it. But you know how like there'll be like even like our own like spouses or whatever, right? Like they know how real people feel about them, like their husband, their friends, whatever. And then they read a comment from a stranger that's like, oh, they didn't like my fucking nail polish. Right? So even as an adult, if they have a hard time discerning that,
Yeah,
for middle school kids, it's extra hard.
It's extra hard,
So
yeah.
I'm trying to spend. I know it's inevitable. So I'm like, in the real age, as much as I can affirm what real social interactions and opinions are, I feel like that sets the foundation. Then later on, when it goes, man, your fucking haircut's whack, he'll be like, oh, but I know how my dad feels about me. That's fine. Versus,
He also thinks it's whack.
yeah.
You know my dad.
Versus like when I think it's too young and it's still molding.
Yeah.
Then like there's no real, like for me, like I don't give a fuck. Like even when I am getting canceled, it doesn't hurt that bad because I know how my true homies feel about me, and I have a strong inner circle.
Right. Your foundation is strong.
But when your foundation is outside validation and you get canceled, dude, that's so hard.
Yeah.
Also, like, there's a case study already we've seen over time, right? They talk about this, and you can read about, like, when the smartphone was created and invented and available to all consumers in, like, 2008, 2009 era is when depression, is when suicides, is
It's
when...
ever been since record keeping.
So we have that case study. So I'd be super down for a case study where 16-year-olds or whatever under aren't allowed smartphones, and who knows, maybe it's like not right, or like we're taking somebody's right to a smartphone away. That's already really weird. But let's get that case study back. You know what I'm saying? Let's just see what happens, because same shit, like when you're an adult, like we've already developed an understanding of who we are. When you're a child, you're learning who you are. You shouldn't be learning who you are through watching somebody else's life and judging and comparing, because you're super sensitive and you're super innocent to things and you haven't developed yourself. You got to find out who you are before you can like just learn about everybody else's stuff, you know?
I think it's got to come down to parents, because from a regulatory POV,
I don't think there's any law you could set up without parental involvement that would actually work.
True.
I don't know about you guys. When I was in school, we were on addictinggames.com. Yeah, you remember? Even though that was banned, because we learned how to use VPNs at age 10. And our teachers didn't even know what these things were.
Yeah, they didn't even know.
So one, I think it has to come from the parents because the law can't enforce it. Two, I think it's got to come from the parents because what you just said, Bart, there's a balance between, look, kids want to express themselves. They got to be creative. They got to learn. The internet, it just gives them everything. And that means they can make more, but it means they're going to be exposed. And as a parent, you have to do a good job guiding your child through it. Now, the scary thing about this, and I think this is why people want to enshrine it in law, is now you're just trusting people. Because just because you're a parent doesn't mean you're a good parent. We don't know what you're going to let your kid watch. And I think that is just an inevitable cost of having technology make it easier for all of us to connect and share stuff with each other. You also have to take on that responsibility of protecting your kids. I think the way you're doing it is right.
Thank you. The extra hard part too is, let's say as a parent you go, no social media, whatever for you, or no tablet, but then you go to the homie's house. They're like, their whole family has it. So it's also like a community-based thing too.
Right.
But when I
Which
think
is
about
why, though, if it becomes like law, then you as a parent get to be like, oh, it's not my fault.
A little bit helpful, a little bit more helpful.
Yeah, that's all.
But when I think about like laws and regulations and things like this, right? I think they're thinking of the most vulnerable population that don't have parents and they're neglected, because it has to go into, now the government has to take over, because there's that group. The people that already have responsible parents, they're gonna be like Bart and have this thought out, and you don't need a law in order to have good parenting in play. So I'm like, which is better, right? So like, do we give a fighting chance to the youth who probably have drugged up parents, or whoever they're just not around and they don't give a fuck, right? So then like, what's going to balance that? And does the state have to come in and do it?
That's a fascinating concept. What is the purpose of law? Is it to specifically help the most disenfranchised, even if for the majority of people, maybe it even gets in their way? There's this philosopher named John Rawls, and he said, let's construct a society. And he said, number one, laws should be intended to help the least fortunate, even if it hurts the majority. And the second proxy he used, which we could use here as well, he had something called the veil of ignorance. He said, let's all sit here and say, we don't know who we're going to be in society. Maybe we will be that really unfortunate child who grows up with druggy parents and no one's paying attention to us. Or maybe you grow up and you're Elon Musk's kid. Actually, I don't know if that's the best state to be in. Maybe you're Bart's kid. Maybe that's the best. Maybe you're Tiger. Exactly. We are sitting here, we don't know which person we're going to end up being. Now let's sit and construct laws. Because this means you construct a law knowing that, like, maybe what if I'm the disenfranchised kid? Like, wouldn't I want to prevent the downside case? So that's an interesting point. I was thinking more like, well, for me, if I had a kid, I could watch over him like Bart. I wasn't thinking about there are people out there who don't have that.
Yeah, because I always think about the lowest common denominator and upping the bar for them. So if they're not protected, then who is protecting them? But a lot of people don't like how the state is interfering now with family like rules and whatever's, right? Because I think that's the difficult part, is big state or little state? What do we do?
But I think like even with law, it's such a, it's like written, but it's so gray, right? Like
True.
Think about like addicting games, right? If they say you can't play addicting games, you're gonna have two kids in the class. One's gonna be like, fuck, I can't play this. The other one's gonna be like, fuck you, I'm gonna figure out what a VPN is and I'm gonna go around this system.
Right.
Same thing with this law. If you put a law like this in place, it's not like everybody's gonna not have a social media account, but the ones that like just choose to break it, which again, this isn't like harming another human being, like, or directly. If they're choosing to, there's also something about maybe that person's gonna be a creator because they want to be so badly. You know, it just puts a barrier in place for the people that either desire it so much that there's gonna take some sort of like effort, ingenuity, and even creativity to do something to break that law. And you know what I'm saying?
There's one more obstacle.
And it's not like police.
Speed bumps,
It's not like police are gonna come by and be like, "Hey, I heard you're breaking the social media law."
I could say what Joe said. It's about the lowest common denominator. It's about the most disenfranchised child. Sure, you're saying, oh, it's just a speed bump. Maybe for us, it wouldn't have been that hard to figure it out. But maybe there's people out there, even the slightest bit of friction, their lives are already so hard. That's gonna get in the way of them getting through and expressing their creativity. So in a way, it's sort of the inverse version of what you described.
Yeah. And also, it can be a law, but who's enforcing it and how are they enforcing it?
Exactly.
'Cause it might be a bunch of idiots that misinterpret it, and then now they're like police state style hardcore, like using it to now
using it
create
as
censorship.
leverage, yeah.
We don't really know because it's all volatile humans that are kind of playing this
Right.
game. But I think ultimately everything starts off with maybe good intentions of like, hey, we shouldn't expose these kids too early. But I mean, dude, we were all fucking beaten off at 13 years old watching shit online already. So 16 sounds too old.
Which is why I think it's a funny law that could like if I was a parent I would just use it. It's not about enforcing it. It was
Oh,
just
like, see,
know what
it's
I mean?
against the law.
It's like a tool for parents to use, right?
because nobody can fucking go down and really enforce it.
You know what works even better as that? Because this exact thing that got vetoed, it was saying that kids under 16 couldn't have social media even if their parents allowed it. So that's more for them to go, hey, me, it's DeSantis.
Yeah.
But obviously,
Don't run away from home, okay?
You're gonna have social
Go to
media
different
no matter
state.
what. dude.
but even if your parent, like, even it says your parents, if they allow it, you can't do it. Your parent might still be like, "Fuck it, dude." Like, and nobody's gonna fucking put you in
And
jail.
yeah.
That's why I'm like, oh, this is a sick law because people who need to use it can use it. If they're gonna break it, they're gonna break it. Who gives a fuck?
That's true.
It's like us kids watching porno when we're under 18.
Yeah, how many laws stopped us?
Our parents
when
didn't
we were
want us to
younger?
watch porno when we were under 18.
That's also
We still found a way.
That's an interesting thing too, is that I always assumed, you know, back when we lived in the internet age, that was the transitionary one, where like our parents knew zero and we knew everything. And then I always assumed that in the next generation, when, you know, our generation was savvy enough that we'd be able to catch more stuff, but it progresses still.
Yeah.
And now we are the zeros, and then our kids, you know.
Because Taika plays Roblox, right?
Yeah.
So Roblox, it's almost like another world.
Right.
They share songs, they share food. So it's like before you're like, oh, I'll just monitor what he's watching. But now, like when he's like, he can like have friends in other places I've never even met that they talk, and I'm like, oh fuck, I'm the grandpa again.
Yeah.
That doesn't even know what the fuck's happening.
Right. Like it's always gonna move a step ahead. But the funny thing too is that like I didn't account for like when I was like 13 or 14 using the internet thinking I was the king. I didn't account that in the future parents would also exploit their own kids.
Oh, that's crazy.
I didn't see that coming. I always looked at it like parents were against it and they were trying to stop you and they're stopping you. But
I would if I had Ryan Toys as my son. That fool made 30 million last. Oh my goodness!
Last quarter.
I wish he was my son.
That was one of the craziest eye-opening.
Ryan's toy review.
We went to a Playlist Live, and then some of the, like creator events or meetups or whatever, they're like 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night. And then there was one where there's like a mom or a dad, he had a camera, and then he was shooting the baby, like just like walking in the hallway, like vlogging and shit. And I'm like, damn, this motherfucker's getting content right now on the kid. That's fucking crazy.
Yeah, man. It's always gonna take a different.
Because it blurs the lines, right? It's like, when do I step in as a creator or when do I step in as parents?
And that's kind of where like I look at this thing and how they're doing these laws to prevent kids, but if it's the parent that's the root of it, in either way, where they're the cause, you're doing nothing to prevent that.
Just leave it open then, I don't know.
Leave it open. I think DeSantis vetoed it, so I mean there must be some form of logic that's like, I don't think this is actually gonna do what he
I also think like looking at my degenerate upbringing versus some of like my other friends that I felt like came out more productive at an early age, it's always like what other alternatives do you have? So like my friend's been playing basketball since he was 5, so he's in school teams, social teams, whatever. He just doesn't even have that much time to go on the internet and fucking jack off. For me, I go home after school at 3, I literally have 0 productive activities. So I'm jacking off from 3 all the way to like 9 p.m.
Who says that's not productive?
So when there's like, you know what I mean? Like when there's other things in play that are like actual purposeful things, people will gravitate towards that, but when you don't, then you become scumbags like us, and then we just...
That's why you never answer your phone.
Yeah, you need shit to do, bro.
8 p.m. to 9. I can't reach Bart, guys.
Go straight to voicemail.
He's in like airplane mode or something.
So weird. Every Monday.